Once you've got to a point in your career where you can no longer get out of bed for your job, it's a real just drain on you, that's an indication that it's time to move on. And I would encourage everybody who's in a full-time job that if you're like just really unhappy, what's the point? Why are you waking up unhappy every day and going to work?
All right, Omar, you are probably my most disciplined friend. And my friend that has probably been through the most experiences in life based on the life that you live. And that's from a business perspective, from a personal perspective, and from a lifestyle perspective. You always seem to know some wild and crazy people, whether it's scholars or entrepreneurs. Your contact list and your network is very extensive. You've achieved some amazing things, and you have a lovely family. And I know you've constructed your life in a way, and you've been through such a big and long journey to get to where you are. There's a lot that I've learned from that. And I'm sure that there's a lot of things that other people can learn from that as well, which is why I wanted to get you on the pod. Some of your achievements that I really admire and I want to have as well is, one of your businesses is self-sufficient, and that's able to run on its own. So you're able to focus on other projects and other businesses and generate other revenue streams. You've built a lovely family as well, and you're incredibly efficient. I can only get in 30-minute meetings with you, man. You send me your candidly.
But that's just the generic 30. That's not for you. I would give you as much time as you want. You know that, bro.
Mate, well, we talk about that afterwards, all right? But no, you do live an incredibly efficient life, and I admire that, mate. And that's something that I want to have more of as well. But let's kick off with your career and things from a business perspective. So I know you have a successful marketing agency. Again, correct me if I'm wrong when I'm saying that, but give us an insight on Creed & Culture and MIN.
Yeah. So you can't really divorce your business from your background and how you've grown up, because all of that leads to the type of business you create. And to be honest with you, when I actually got married 10 years ago, I actually said to my wife, and I forget I say this, I said to her, "You do know that I'm never going to become rich." I said like, I'm going to have like I'm probably going to have like a standard job for the next 10 years and so on. And for some reason, even though I was actually always entrepreneurial, because like in my early 20s, I was networking, finding the editors of, big publications and then writing for the Guardian and the Times and the Independent. That was all due to just like thinking outside the box and thinking, how can I do something that other people aren't doing? And then managing influences in my early 20s, that was just like exploiting opportunities that I found. So there was always something entrepreneurial there, but think, I didn't actually plan to become an entrepreneur. It just happened. So I had a relatively, I suppose, regular job working at a charity in the marketing team, and I was doing pretty well. Like I was hitting goals, and I was asking for more and more salary and all that kind of stuff. So I was doing quite well, and my business partner Saif ended up working in the same team as me, both working in marketing, both running influencer campaigns. We got along, and long story short, we decided to create the world's first Muslim influencer agency, which we thought of in 2016. Took us 1 year. In 2017, we ended up launching it, and that wasn't planned. It wasn't like I want to set up a business. It was just a conversation I had, and we decided to do it. And after 1 year, we ended up launching. Long story short, we ended up creating a sister agency called Creed and Culture. And the reason for that was because a lot of the brands that came to us, they were like, "We know you're the Muslim guys, but like, can you do something for like Black History Month and Diwali and like Chinese New Year?" We're like, why are you coming to us for that? And but the thing is, there was so much demand, and people kept saying like, "Can we need a diversity and inclusion agency?" And my background, I'm from a mixed race background. Saif is also, he's qualified in diversity inclusion. So we thought, let's create this sister agency called Creed and Culture. So MIN being the Muslim influencer arm, and Creed and Culture being the diversity inclusion arm. And long story short, we've ended up with a few different businesses. Those are just on the marketing side. We're now in real estate, and we also acquired a global media platform as well, for young Muslims. So Um, it's just fascinating, like how one thing leads to another, and you don't know where life is going to take you. It just happens. If someone told me that I would end up being a shareholder of like five businesses, today, I would be like, how would I do that? But that's life, isn't it?
Yeah, bro. Like, so you started off when you were like 23, 24, if I'm correct, right?
So the first, so actually, the first business I launched was a marriage agency. Do you remember that one, bro? You don't remember?
No, I don't remember.
I don't know what happened. I don't know if we lost contact during that time. So I launched a marriage company called Alif and Ain with Amina, my wife. Do you remember now?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Which we later learned was not very scalable, because it was all manual, you see, and so the business model was flawed. So unless you're charging ridiculously high prices, the business is not really going to work. And then Amina ended up studying. She did a master's and a PhD, and I'm not running this by myself. I'm not matching people, by myself. Um,
Mate, all the applications are going to you, mate. That's why.
yeah. So we literally shut that down after like 6 to 9 months. It wasn't going to work out. But that was actually my first business when I was about 23.
But Omar, like you've always had a lot of courage as well, because I remember when we were at school, you were buying domains. I remember like we were like at 10, 11 years old. And I remember going over to your house and you'd be like, yeah, I bought spin.com. I was like, what? How are you fucking buying domains, bro? I didn't even, I'm playing PlayStation, man. I didn't know what this is.
I don't know how you remembered that. I don't know how you remembered spin.com.
What was the story behind spin.com?
So I wasn't 11. I was first year of uni, I think. But
Oh, right. That's a big difference there, mate.
yeah, I mean, there was always something entrepreneurial there. So spin.com was a current affairs website, for people who wanted an alternative understanding of the news. So I launched that when I was like 18.
Yeah.
There's always been a part of me as well that's been like, how do we provide an alternative perspective to things, and I think that's something we've always talked about,
How do you keep building the courage to keep testing things out? Because you've obviously tried out a number of different things and you still continue to do that.
To be honest, it didn't even feel like having the courage and confidence. It was just when things feel right, I think you should go for it, because I think we all have this intuition, about what you should be doing. And I think one of the problems we have in life with many people is that we don't follow our intuition, and our gut instinct and our intuition, provided it actually is your intuition, it's not coming from a place of fear or anxiety or whatever it is. If you can tap into that, then I think it's really powerful, because there's something within us which tells us what we should be doing, and I think we ignore it. Most people ignore that. So we're all capable of so much more, and it's only when we actually go ahead with what we know we should be doing that we tend to achieve great things.
No, definitely. I completely agree with you, man. On the intuition standpoint, even me, like trying to just follow my gut feeling, I do struggle with it. And a number of people that have come on the pod here, I've asked them how they've done it. So how do you feel it? How does your intuition or gut feeling come around?
I think we feel it on a daily basis, whether we're talking to friends, we're talking to family, even whether what food we should be eating. Like our gut literally, will send signals to our brain saying eat this or don't eat this, and we often ignore it, and that's the reason why we end up with all sorts of stomach issues and bloating, and you know and all sorts of things. So we can be constantly aware of the intuition within us. It's just a matter of whether we want to tap into that and accept it or not. So there's something powerful within us. From a materialistic perspective, they would say it's just your biology and your chemicals and so on. But from a spiritual perspective, it's probably something deeper than that.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. And I think that's also good because it tells you when to stop with ideas as well when you realize you're not getting any traction with them. Because I know you've obviously tried out a number of different things, and those that have been successful, obviously you've continued to pursue with them. And those that haven't, you've cut them off. I remember once there was even that sunglasses or glasses. So you were trying to kick off as well, man. Like I know you've had so many, but from all of these different businesses you've tried out, what are some of the difficulties that you've come across? I know when I was kicking off my business, you gave me a little sit down and said to me, look, it's not going to be as easy and smooth as you think.
So there's a few that I would be very vulnerable. One of the issues I've faced is I have this intuition, and when I have this feeling, I know that I know what's going to happen. I have a very strong feeling. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll communicate that, but I won't enforce it. And that's to my peril. So, for example, I'll say to my business partners or to my colleagues, we need to do this. And then sometimes I won't follow through with it because it's just that initial feeling. I'm like, this is going to happen. And I'll say, guys, this is going to happen. But what you need to do as a leader, and this is probably where my failing is at the moment, is it's not just communicating. You need to inspire people, right? Leadership is about getting people to take actions to move towards a particular goal, right? And if you only communicate something without actually inspiring people to take the action, it's ineffective, right? So that's one of the personal issues I've had is being aware of issues, but then not being able to inspire people to take the action, or even maybe doing it myself. Like that's another thing is that in business, as we kind of interesting segues, is business is not just about thinking about things or telling people what to do. It's about getting things done. Like you have to take ownership over your role. So you get things done no matter how you get it done, right? So you have to take ownership and be the driving force behind things. That's what an entrepreneur is. The second thing, or there's that if you regard that as one thing, the second thing would be you have to understand your strengths, and double down on those strengths. So that doesn't mean that if you're weak at something, you can't improve it, right? But there will be things that you're naturally good at that you can lean into. And those are the things you should be doing on a daily basis. If you're, for example, one of the things that I'm pretty weak at is like the operations and finance side. Like I'm pretty good when it comes to marketing, creativity, networking, introducing people to each other, listening to people. I have certain skills, right? In that sense. But if you were to ask me, like Omar, I'm in charge of the operations and the finances of the business, things aren't going to get done, right? So the point I'm making is that like you need to be able to compensate and be very aware as quickly as possible where your weaknesses are, and then make sure you find a solution to that. So whether you need to hire someone who's operationally minded because you're not going to be able to do it, or you're so disinterested in it and you're not going to bring yourself to do it, then you need to find somebody else to do it. And the third thing, final thing I would say is business is really about focus. And when you're working as an entrepreneur, you really need to be able to learn to hyper focus, right? And we're surrounded by so many distractions today. Like that is literally, if we were to characterize the time in which we live, it's a time of distraction. And if you look at the dictionary, one of the dictionary definitions of distraction, it's related to the idea of having mental turmoil, right? So distraction is a very dangerous thing. And so if we can't learn to focus and to hyper focus on the most important work that we're doing, and we're constantly being distracted, we're never going to get to where we want to be, or it's going to take us 10 times longer, right? So learning how to focus, switch off from our comms and our devices and so on is really important. And that's one of the issues I think, especially Gen Z and the generation below that, may struggle with over the coming years because we're so distracted all the time.
What tools do you enforce to help you focus?
I try to get things done as early as possible in the day. One of the things I think is probably common to all of us is, when the day starts after 9, 10 o'clock, you have people trying to contact you and so on. That's not necessarily going to work for everyone. Some people may work better at nighttime, but you have to find what works for you. So I tend to find that early morning is a very good time where nobody's trying to get hold of you to get work done. The other thing is, if you need to block in what Cal Newport calls deep work during the day. So especially as an entrepreneur, especially as you're building something, you need to be able to switch off all of your potential distraction, you know, whether it's phones or WhatsApp or whatever, and you need to zone in and get deep work done. Deep work is completely undistracted work because that's when you're going to produce your best work. You're not going to produce your best work if you're simultaneously on WhatsApp. So those two things, trying to start early and when you're working, really zoning in and focusing.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. That's a really good point, Omar. And do you encourage your team and your co-founder to do the same as well?
Yeah, I try to. I mean, I think that's one of the jobs of entrepreneurs and leaders is to get the best out of your team. So that's something that anyone who wants to be a leader, anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, it's not it's not about you. You are just one piece of the puzzle. The teams that win are where you can inspire everyone else to be the best.
Yeah, no, definitely. And how do they are they receptive of it? Or are they like, fucking hell, Omar's coming in here again telling me that I need to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to smash my emails out? It's like, how are they finding it?
No, I think, look, so first of all, you have to find a way to talk to everybody because everybody is very different. Everybody receives things differently, everybody interprets things differently. And that's another characteristic of a leader is understanding people, right? Understanding people and understanding how do you speak with them. I've got one friend, and I've got many friends, in fact, that if you were to approach them from saying like that's not going to work, they'll get defensive, right? So the way you frame things to people is very important. Whereas other people, I'll give you, for example, in football, Alex Ferguson, he would shout at some of his players to get the best out of them. And other players, if he was to shout at them, they would go into a bit of a shell and they wouldn't react well to it. So he would know who to shout at and who not to shout at, right? I don't shout at anybody, but but the point I'm making is that you really need to spend time getting to know people, because it's only when you get to know people that you can bring the best out of them because you understand how their mind works. So that's really important.
That's awesome, man. And do you feel that that's been one of the biggest pillars in creating culture to get it to where it is now? Is the communication in the team, how you've trained them, how you've built everyone up, and the culture that you've built within the company?
I've made many mistakes in my companies, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but I would say the any of the small successes I've had in any of the businesses has been as a result of time. That's really important to acknowledge if you want to become an entrepreneur, if you are an entrepreneur, is that you have to keep going. Steve Jobs famously said that the people who succeed are the people who are most persistent. you know. So the first year, 2 years, 3 years is going to be very difficult. You may not draw a wage for a while. So you have to keep going, keep being persistent, keep learning, and keep at it. If as long as you believe in your business, then keep going, and you can see traction, and there's revenue coming in, and people like your product, and you can deliver it well. Then keep going, and eventually you'll get there. That's the main advice I would give, right? Is be persistent, because things don't happen overnight.
Yeah. So Omar, with creating culture though, to get it to a self-sufficient space, how did you do it? And what are the key things for other people if they wanted to get the business to a self-sufficient space? How would they need to do that?
I think the moment we found somebody competent to run the business, we knew that we could step back. So I think that's the most important thing. If so, first of all, I would say any entrepreneur, double down, focus on one business. Don't try and do multiple businesses. You most likely will make a mess of things. And once you've been able to do that, and you found somebody competent to run your business, then you can move on to the next one. You need to give it time and keep iterating. The second thing I would say is it really requires not to be distracted and to focus. At the moment, we have a very competent managing director looking after creating culture, who's that's his sole focus. If the managing director was managing multiple businesses or had various things going on, it's not going to work. And the third thing is there has to be this aspiration to be very good at what you do, right? Any company that is mediocre is not going to succeed in the end. They're going to win a few clients, get a bit of money, and then they're not going to do very well. So in Islam we have this concept called ihsan, which means excellence. And that's at the heart of really our faith and what we're encouraged to do. And then there's another word called itqan, which means excellence, execution of the thing. So there's the overall philosophy, which is ihsan, and there's the execution of it. And that's what everybody should be aspiring for, is how do you achieve excellence? How do you achieve, you know, like don't settle for mediocrity. But by the way, you can't just say this to yourself. In order to become excellent at something, you have to go through that training, and you have to understand what excellence is, right? So one of the pieces of advice I would give to any young person before starting a business, is really work for people who are very good at what they do. So I would always encourage everybody generally to work in big corporations, in the early 20s, because that will give you the mindset, the training, the understanding of process and systems that you need if you're starting a startup. Like too many startups, they don't prioritize the idea of doing things well and being systematic. And that's what kind of the big corporations, and I'm not encouraging anybody to work for anyone unethical. There are big corporations who are quite ethical, but to get that grounding and that training first, for me, is really important, when starting a business.
Yeah. Anything else that you would recommend people do before starting a business?
I would say, have at least 18 months of personal runway. So what that means is, for people who may not be familiar with the term, is be able to live for 18 months, because just in case your business takes a while to take off. Some people may even say 2 years, which might even be more sensible. So you need to be aware of the fact that you may not take a wage, for a while. The second thing I would say is, if you're looking to start a business, um, once you've got to a point in your career where you can no longer get out of bed for your job, it's a real just drain on you, that's an indication that it's time to move on. And I would encourage everybody who's in a full-time job, that if you're like just really unhappy, what's the point? Why are you waking up unhappy every day and going to work? As a minimum, change your role, you know, or or change professions, or if you want to become like, do your own thing, but don't resign yourself to the belief that you just there's no other option, and you just have to bring yourself to work every day, and being unhappy is like, that's not really life. That's not really how you should be living life.
Yeah. Yeah.
The third thing is, I would encourage people to start a business or to go full time with their business only once they've got proof of traction, or proof of concept, and they're generating revenue. It's risky, very risky, to have an unvalidated idea, and go full time into your business, because you may fail. Most businesses fail, right? So you want to make sure that you have some clients, you have some revenue. You've proven that your business, um, it makes sense. It's validated, and only then should you go full time. Everyone will have a different opinion, but that's my opinion.
So no, thanks, Omar. I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, for you to have built that business, that requires a lot of discipline, because obviously a lot of your time is spent focusing on building and branding and team and collaborations, etc. Where did that discipline come from? Because I think from you, from a very young age, you've always been very disciplined, and I don't just mean that from a work perspective, but from a personal perspective as well. I think there was a story where, I mean, we went to Arsenal, Emirates, I think just when Emirates opened, and we just moved from Highbury to Emirates, and we went to go and see Arsenal play like some rubbish team. I think it was like Blackburn or West Ham or something ridiculous. And I think I didn't realize how religious you were at the time. And I remember we were like 14, 15 years old, and it was half time, and we went to the restaurant to get some food, still in the grounds at the stands, and I got like pizza, and I managed to get a beer. Right, remember? I managed to get served a beer, and I was like, "Omar, do you want a beer?" Because like, this is the time. Like, I'm in now. we can get hammered, and I'm getting served. And you were like, "No, I'm not going to do that." I was like, "Mate, like, you're not going to get served anywhere else for a beer. Let's just have some beers." And you was like, "No, I'm not going to do it." And then you've always been very discipline from an alcohol perspective. Obviously, I know that's a lot of it. So that's obviously because of religion, but also in the gym. When I've been to the gym, you've always stuck to doing your sets and smashing things out. Diet sometimes, I'd say, but no, these other areas in life, you've definitely been on top of that. So Tell me more about you from a discipline perspective. How's that been from both a business and a personal standpoint for you?
I think the people that we end up becoming is just a result of our life experiences. So I've been around so many good people. I've had so many different life experiences. You know, I would say that I've probably experienced 95. I'm probably um, 95% of people our age haven't experienced what I've experienced. You know, whether it's living in the deserts of West Africa, whether it's you know traveling across the world, whether it's all the different weird, you know, therapeutic type of experiences I've engaged, whether it's like gong baths or like sensory deprivation tanks. I mean, yeah, I know you've done a lot of this stuff as well. I think you and I are quite unique in that sense. We're quite exploitative. Like we try to do different things. You know, I've interviewed celebrities. You know, there's just so many interests. I've met remarkable people, people who are, I believe, are genuinely saints. You know, people who are really close to God. Those are things that you know God just put in front of me. You know, so whatever good things that people see in me is not as a result of me. It's as a result of the experiences that I've had and the 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 blessed opportunities you know I've been given, and all of that molds you and shapes you and turns you into the person that you are today. It's not like the case I just woke up one day, I'm like, I'm going to be disciplined, you know. And to be honest, I would challenge that slightly. I don't think I'm the most disciplined person. So um, yeah, it's what one thing I would encourage people to do is you know d- creating internal drive and desire and accountability is almost impossible. It needs to come first externally. You need to be influenced in order to change, and that takes time. So my advice to anybody is, you really need to make the most of life by meeting people, traveling, exploring, you know, seeing things, you know, like um, go to somewhere that you never thought you would go to. You know, take a month of work and travel to meet you know people in a different part of the world that you never like. All of these things are character building. You know, so those are the things which are going to change your habits and your mindset is by doing things that other people aren't doing because they're transformative. You know, they change who you are. So it's less about watching Andrew Huberman videos and stuff like that. You know, it's more about actually going out and experiencing life. So don't just resign yourself to your town and your city and doing the same things every week, going to the same restaurant and meeting the same people. You wanna do different things.
What gave you that urge to want to do different things, though?
So this is probably comes into the nature nurture debate. Like, who knows what drives us to do certain things? But since I've been young, and you've probably seen this, I've always been quite curious and quite inquisitive and philosophical.
Yeah.
I don't know where that philosophical mind came from. Like, my parents didn't train me to be like that. You know, school didn't train us to be like that. So that's why I think that a lot of who we are is nature, right? Not just nurture. So God, for some reason, gave me a kind of philosophical mind, and there's always a reason why God makes us the way we are, so that we can impact and influence the world in a way in which God wants us to. Um, you know, so I think part of it is just nature, and then the nurture part is down to us. You know, it's kind of like we have to go out and experience life, because both of those things need to come together. So yeah, I don't know, is the answer. Is just we're made differently, right?
Yeah, no, you've always been ahead of your time, mate. Like some of the some of the stuff you used to say to me as a kid, man, I was like, what is he going on about? I mean, like now I completely understand and I get it. And you've always had a hunger to want to educate yourself more. And I remember that you would want to go to exhibitions and events where there's hundreds of scholars, and you want to go and sit and speak with them. And like you said, going to the desert, and like, I was like, yeah, all right, Omar, you're probably staying at a hotel there. You're like, no, there's no air conditioning. I'm staying there for a few months. I'm actually going to extend my stay. I was like, all right, mate. But you were willing to do that at a very young age, where everybody else kind of just wanted to go out on the piss, or go to festivals, or go backpacking, etc. Which there's nothing wrong with doing that. You just took a completely different route, which you enjoyed, and you carried out your interests. So I think I applaud you for being so persistent with that, man, because look how you've come out all right now, right?
Hope so. Don't know if my wife would say that.
But bro, I want to ask you, why are you so efficient, and how are you so efficient?
There's a famous Islamic philosopher and scholar, a theologian called Imam al-Ghazali, who lived about 800 years ago. And I'm always inspired by his quote where he said that don't be like animals who just let time pass. You need to structure your day very carefully and very specifically to know what exactly you're doing basically every hour of the day. So your morning should be planned out, your afternoon should be planned out, your evening should be planned out, your bedtime routine should be planned out. So having that structure to your day is really important. And I think some people think that just going with the flow is the right way to live life. And I would say sometimes, but most of the time not, because human beings need stability. We like familiarity. And I think that's very important. And I think without having that grounding on a day-to-day basis, knowing these are the things you're going to do, there has to be things you do every single day, right? Because they build habits. Um, so um, yeah, I've always I wouldn't say I've always been like that. I think I've grown into it, and to be honest, life just takes you, like for example, now that I have a son, he's 19 months old, he wakes up at a certain time every morning, so I have to be up at that time. So sometimes there are these external factors which help you along the way, you know. So I would encourage, everybody to really plan and structure their day as methodically as possible, because that's how you get the most out of it. If you just leave things to chance, you most likely won't get things done, as you want to.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. But yeah, let's talk about family actually. Like, how has it been, raising a child whilst also starting businesses?
I don't think it's been as hard as I thought it would be. I did take off 3 months paternity. No, not 3 months, 8 weeks paternity at the beginning, and that's something I would encourage any man who has the opportunity, when they have a child, to take off as much time as they can to support, the mother, and be there with their child. But I think having a baby has brings so many blessings, because, like I said, being forced to wake up early, is a great thing. I remember one time when my son wasn't sleeping at night, it was waking up every hour. It was an opportunity to wake up 3, 4 in the morning and pray, which I'd never really done before, you know. So um, I think having a child is the most difficult thing you can do on the one hand, but you end up there's always two sides to the coin. So there's you end up with many other things in your life that you wouldn't have got if it wasn't for that. So I think it's easy to become stressed and kind of, to feel like having a child and running a business is too much. But at the end of the day, you can have an excuse for anything, right? So the point is like, whatever you do in life, you have to take ownership of it, and you have to give it your best. Like, you're not going to get anywhere if you make excuses. There's somebody who, I've worked with, previously, and anytime they couldn't get something done, she would complain. And it's like, complaining, okay, I understand why people complain, but nobody likes complainers, and complaining doesn't get you anywhere. It's like, how do you become solution focused? Okay, you've got a problem. How do you deal with that problem, right? So it's important to take that, have that sense of, okay, things are difficult. Fine, you deal with it. Let's find a solution to the problem.
Yeah, no, beautiful, man. I completely agree with you there. It's all about just being proactive and making things happen rather than making excuses for them not to happen.
Mm, yeah.
And Omar, I know me and you talk a lot on a one-to-one level about mental health, and not only just with businesses, but like even when I was working in corporate as well. How's that journey been for you, and how are you managing your mental health whilst running your business?
So, mental health is a very difficult and complex issue. I think there's so many things involved in mental health. There's, your upbringing, there's life, how you live your lifestyle. There's probably an element of genetics involved. There's the idea of spirituality involved. All of these things impact your mental health. And one of the most important things I think anyone can do is educate themselves on, I'm going to use a very cliche phrase, but becoming a better version of yourself. Because the more you learn, the more educated you are, the more equipped you are to deal with life. So, for example, if you're facing a massive challenge at work, which could be very anxiety inducing or could be, could just make you spiral, if you have the tools, the educational tools to know how to deal with things, you're much less likely to get into a bad place. So that's why education is so important. In Islam, there's this idea, like the very first word revealed in the Quran is read. you know so there's this idea of education. There's sayings in our faith like seek knowledge even if it's as far as China. Seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. And the reason for this knowledge is not just to feel like you know stuff and to repeat it to other people. It's to improve yourself, right? It's to refine yourself. It's to give you the tools to be equipped to deal with life's challenges. So when it comes to mental health, I think you can't divorce mental health from the idea of being on this journey of self-improvement. You can't just go about life day to day and let it throw you around and so on. You have to be very proactive in learning, in self-improvement, and so on. And for anybody who is suffering from mental health issues, um, of course, it's something that people should take very, very seriously. And but I would say that there isn't necessarily just one solution to it. For example, going to the doctors and getting drugs. There are many others. For example, the biggest ever study on depression, are from Harvard University, show that the best way to combat it is actually through vigorous exercise, right? So you can't discount the importance of changing how you live your life and the things you do in it. All of these things will help. Overall, I've been I've been pretty okay since I've started my businesses from a mental health perspective. Of course, I've broken down. Of course, I've been stressed. Of course, I've had anxiety. I still get anxiety all the time, with business challenges. But you have to be able to see the bigger picture. Don't get so caught up in this one micro problem that you have. You have to be able to see that this is just one small problem, and you're going to get out of it. So that's what I would say.
Are there any books that you recommend that you've read, or any other tools that you've used?
So there isn't one specific book on mental health, and there isn't one particular tool. The main thing I would say is try to make incremental changes in your life. So what start with a very small micro change, and that eventually will lead to many other changes in your life. So for example, you don't exercise, go for a walk every day. Start with that. You don't feel like your diet is where it should be. Cut down the amount of toast that you eat. You know, for example, like like having too many refined sugars or refined carbohydrates in the morning is not the best place to start. And we discount these things. We just like have my two or three toasts in the morning, and have my Rubicon, or whatever it might be. Um, uh, People outside the UK may not know Rubicon is, but um, um, so yeah, look for those incremental changes in your day, and don't try to do everything in one go. And then just read as widely as possible. The more you read, the more access to solutions that you're going to have, the more creative you're going to be with your problem solving. So that's what I would say.
So Omar, you've done a lot of things, and you cut down on a lot of toast and Rubicon mango, clearly. But how did you come about to be who you are? What's your kind of story?
So I think I was fortunate actually to grow up in a very diverse family. So my father was a Pakistani, Pakistani Muslim. I mean, he was born in Kenya, and then my mother was born Christian, converted to Islam, and then in my entire family on my mom's side are not Muslim. And it's they're mixed race, right? So they're DeCostas on my mom's side of the family. So I think it's a massive privilege to be able to grow up around such diversity within your family because it gives you new perspective. You know, your new horizons open for you because of being around different people and the way they think and the way they act and the way they live their lives is really important. So I grew up like you in a quite a white area, and then ended up in 100% Asian secondary school, quite the opposite. Um, and then for some reason at a very young age, I always knew I wanted to pursue journalism, which is what I did at university. I pursued journalism for like, a couple of years afterwards, maybe slightly less than that. And then fell into marketing, ended up becoming an entrepreneur, working with influencers and ended up with a diverse range of companies. So that's kind of a quick pit stop into, quick summary of my life growing up, I suppose. But yeah, I've just always been very curious and wanting to experience new and different things, and I think that's contributed to who I am and where I am today.
Yeah, you've had actually quite a funny journey going from being raised in a. We went to like a full white primary school. I think we only became friends because I moved to Woodford when I was like in year six, and they were like, "Yeah, here's the other brown guy in the in the school, Omar. You'll be friends with him." And then you went to an all Asian high school, and then you went to a Catholic sixth form. So you definitely try and get lots of different things there. But Omar, look, just to tie things up, man, I want to just ask you, and I ask this to everybody on the pod. What would be a message to your younger self, or if somebody was to meet you today and you want them to remember something from you or about you, what would that message be?
So I think depending on the day, you're going to give a different piece of advice, But the one thing I would say is, we're all very capable of achieving great things, and we underestimate that. God wouldn't have created us without a particular reason. We're not created in vain. So have that sense of self belief, that you're here for a reason. So all of us are capable of so much more than we think, and we need to have that sense of um, pride, within ourselves. So believe in yourself. Just to go back to previous point is, trust yourself, and listen to your intuition, because you know it's going to generally guide you to the right place. We act at our peril when we don't listen to ourselves. So have that sense of self-belief and carry out the things which you should be doing.
Yeah, no, beautiful, man. And you've always given me that courage and advice as well, mate. So I thank you for all of that, mate. And I really hope people can digest and take all the fruits from you as well. So thanks for taking out your time and doing this, bro. I really do appreciate it.